Have you ever felt like you're trying your hardest, doing everything you can, but still it seems like your life isn't moving forward? Have you ever looked at other people thriving while you continue to face the same struggles, the same problems and the same worries? If the answer is yes, I want you to stay with me until the end of this message, because there is a powerful truth hidden in Proverbs 3 that can completely change the way you see success, money, purpose, and prosperity. But first, I want to ask you one thing. Write in the comments now, "I will prosper." Don't just write for the sake of writing. Write believing. Write as someone who has decided that they will no longer accept living below the potential that God has placed within them. Now pay attention. Many people believe that prosperity is just having money, but the Bible presents a much deeper vision. Prosperity is living with direction. It's having peace while building. It's growing without losing your essence. It's about moving forward, knowing that your steps are aligned with a greater purpose. And that's exactly what Solomon begins teaching in Proverbs 3. He says, "My son, do not forget my teachings." Notice something interesting. Solomon doesn't talk about wealth first. He doesn't talk about gold. He doesn't talk about material possessions. He talks about teachings. Why? Because before God changes what is in your hands, he works on what is in your mind. This is a truth that few people understand. Most people look for shortcuts. They want quick results. They want instant prosperity. But God works through principles. And principles always come before promises. Think about it. A person can receive a large sum of money today, but if they lack wisdom, they will lose everything tomorrow. On the other hand, someone who possesses wisdom can lose everything and still rebuild their life. Because true wealth has never been just in the bank account. True wealth has always been in the mind. That's why Solomon insists so much on the importance of keeping wisdom within your heart. Because what you keep inside yourself ends up determining what you will experience in the future. Now, there's a verse in Proverbs 3 that is perhaps one of the best known in the Bible, but it's also one of the least practiced. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." Stop for a moment and think about that. How many times have you tried to solve everything alone? How many times have you carried burdens that should never have been on your shoulders? How many nights have you lost sleep trying to find answers? The truth is that many people are exhausted, not because they work too much, but because they try to control things that are beyond their control. And that's exactly where Solomon presents a transformative principle. Trust, not a superficial trust, but a complete trust. A confidence that remains firm even when circumstances don't make sense. Because anyone can trust when everything is going well. But true faith appears when the situation seems impossible. When resources have run out. When doors have closed. When no one else believes. It is at this moment that confidence transforms into strength. And perhaps that is exactly what God is trying to develop in you right now. Perhaps your challenge is not a punishment. Perhaps it is training. Perhaps God is strengthening your faith so that you can sustain what you are about to receive. Because there is something that many people forget. Great blessings require great structures. And God never gives something great to someone who is not prepared to carry it. That's why processes are important. That's why challenges exist. That's why some doors remain closed for a while. Not because God has forgotten you, but because he is preparing you. And the sooner you understand this, the more peace you will have during the journey. Now pay attention to another powerful statement from Proverbs 3. "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths." This phrase contains an extraordinary key. Many people seek direction only when they are desperate. But Solomon teaches something different. He speaks about acknowledging God in all your ways. In business, in family, in decisions, in dreams, in projects, in daily choices. Because when God participates in the direction, the paths become clearer. This does not mean the absence of difficulties. It means the presence of purpose. And there is a huge difference between suffering without purpose and facing challenges. Knowing where you are going, those who lack direction live lost. Those who have direction endure even the storms, because they know there is a destination waiting on the other side. Perhaps you are going through a difficult phase today. Perhaps there are problems that no one knows about. Perhaps there are battles you fight in silence. But I want you to know one thing. God is not absent, even when you can't see it, even when you don't understand. Even when everything seems to stand still, He continues working, and often He is preparing what your eyes cannot yet see. Now we come to an extremely important point. Solomon writes, "Do not be wise in your own eyes." In other words, do not allow pride to become your enemy. Because pride is silent. It makes a person believe that they already know everything, that they don't need to learn, that they don't need to listen, that they don't need to change. And it is precisely at this moment that growth stops. Humble people continue to evolve. They continue to learn. They continue to grow, while proud people remain stuck in the same place. Humility opens doors. Pride closes opportunities. Humility attracts wisdom. Pride hinders growth. And perhaps one of the greatest demonstrations of intelligence is precisely recognizing that there is still much to learn. Solomon understood this. That's why he became one of the wisest men in history. Because he never stopped seeking understanding. He never stopped growing. He never stopped learning. And that's exactly the mindset that Proverbs 3 tries to convey. Now imagine for a moment, what if the biggest obstacle to your prosperity wasn't a lack of money? What if it was a lack of wisdom? What if the answer you seek lies precisely in the development of your mind? Because that's what Solomon reveals when he says, "Blessed is the man who finds wisdom." Observe again, he doesn't say, "Blessed is the man who finds gold." He doesn't say, "Blessed is the man who finds fame." He doesn't say, "Blessed is the man who finds power." He speaks of wisdom, because wisdom produces everything the world is looking for. It produces wealth. It produces honor. It produces direction. It produces stability. It produces sustainable growth. And here is a powerful truth. Money without wisdom disappears, but wisdom creates wealth repeatedly. That's why it's worth more than any treasure, more than gold, more than silver, more than any material possession. Because no one can steal what's inside you. No one can take away the knowledge you've acquired. No one can erase the experience you've built. No one can remove the wisdom developed along the way. And that's precisely why Proverbs 3 places wisdom above all riches, because it is the source of them all. Now imagine your life a few years from now. Imagine looking back and realizing that everything started to change when you decided to seek wisdom, when you decided to trust God more, when you decided to abandon fear, when you decided to stop living only by circumstances. Because every transformation begins with a decision. And perhaps that is your decision today. Decide to grow. Decide to learn. Decide to trust. Decide to prosper. So I want you to make one last declaration with me. Write again in the comments. I will prosper. Write it as a decision. Write it as a commitment. Write it as someone who believes that the best days of your life are yet to come. And never forget, the prosperity that God desires for you begins long before it reaches your hands. It begins in your mind. It begins in your heart. It begins in your faith. And it begins in the wisdom you choose to seek every day.